We ready? Okay. So, and you all are ready, right? Okay. So let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Cambria Community Services District. Today is May 8th, 2025. It is 10 a.m. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have a quorum. All 5 of the directors are here. And I do not have a president's report except to say in the next few days, Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. Agenda review, is there anything that people need to discuss or change or requests? No? Okay. How about board communication? Does any one of the board members would like to speak? Yes, Director Farmer.
Yes, thank you. You're wishing all the mothers Happy Mother's Day just reminded me to say that obviously every day we should give thanks and blessings to Mother Earth, without whom we could not survive. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing else? Okay. Let's go then to public comment. And we have a couple of slips. The first one is Christine Heinrichs.
Good morning, Christine Heinrichs, Cambria. The Thursday, April 24th special board meeting was not recorded by SlowSpan. This meeting will now not be available in the SlowSpan archives. Significant moments in the meetings are not noted in the timeline, requiring those who access it to search through the 2.5-hour video to find the relevant parts of the discussion. The audio is muddled. The camera shifts around without regard to significance. The camera focuses often on confidential assistant Haley Dodson, who does not take an active role in the meeting. All board meetings should be recorded by the professionals at SlowSpan and archived in one place for future reference. Leaving this important meeting out is a disservice to Cambria. SlowSpan records the meetings clearly and archives them accessibly. Providing the public with a complete public record is well worth the minor expense. The cost is around $2,000. Cambria's might think that the board was using this as an excuse to avoid maintaining these public recordings. Please have the professionals at SlowSpan record and archive all board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Terry Bowles. Would you please come up?
Good morning.
Good
My
morning.
name is Terry Bowles. I am from Florida, and my purpose for Cambria is a training center, a housing facilities for these training for our epic battle with homelessness. I would like to make a campaign to change this issue. It will be a wellness check. The volunteers will be trained by not only medics, but the fire department. Everything would be under first responder. It will be called a NEST, a non-emergency support team. And it's for the aid for resources in a volunteer situation. As far as the economy, these volunteers do have EBT cards. It will actually benefit homeless shelters, and it has an opportunity to spread all over through California. It is critical for housing. The place in Cambria, there is a lot of available space, which is very critical in this homeless situation. It is a campaign to fill these people with homes, or even a rental place if provided. The property here, it is a rental, and it will be set up for a rental obligation or a rental contract that they will be renting. They will be changed from homeless to renters. As far as a independent contractor, a construction business for Cambria under volunteer for churches, homes owners, a volunteer for services to provide labor at a very low cost, or actually a donation service. It will be set up for a lot of resources, and there's another check to see if it's actually zoned for housing. That is in slow. A contractor is A to Z. This is A. The first thing first, it is under a critical crisis status. This is Team America. It is our generals who set up in World War II how America should be as far as duty. This General Douglas MacArthur, he quoted, "We the people, duty, honor, country."
Mr. Bowles?
Yes, ma'am.
Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Can you summarize what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to have a facilities to be able to train for the epidemic and a campaign to end homelessness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, just a minute. Do you want to speak directly to him? Because we have some more people for public comment.
Excuse me, yes, not necessarily directly to Mr. Bowles, but I do want to comment on the fact that, oddly enough, this morning on the California report, which is every morning at 10 minutes to 7 o'clock on public radio, and this morning they were talking about accessory dwelling units and tiny houses and how much there's kind of a boom in both of those, unfortunately, because of the Coastal Commission says we can't have accessory dwelling units here in Cambria, but apparently, like I said, both tiny houses and ACUs are booming all over the state of California to assist homeless folks. So I thought I'd mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Director Farmer. Okay. Did you have another public comment?
No.
Okay. Anybody online?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. So let's go. Anything else from the board members? No. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to public safety then.
I was instructed before I leave to get a document, an agreement, go to slow, and see if it is zoned, recommendation.
Mr. Bowles, that isn't something that we can make a decision on because it's not on the agenda, but we invite you to come to any board meeting and talk with our general manager about perhaps if that's something that we would like to put on the agenda. Yes, thank you. Okay. Is the sheriff here? No. So we do have a report that is in our board packet. So is there anything you would like to say about that, Mr. McElhaney?
No, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. So is the California Highway Patrol here to do a report? Nope. All right. No. Yeah. Okay, let's go to then Chief Berkey's report. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. So I have the fire chief's report for the month of April. During April, we saw a total of 91 incidents, 4 false alarms, 17 public service assists, 4 hazardous conditions, 63 medical emergencies, and 3 fires. For comparison information, we served 56 residents, and non-residents, we served 21. Again, for comparison, April 2024, we had a total of 90 incidents, so right on track. We also had year-to-date in 2024 was 224 incidents, and then this year we're at 355. So moving on to the training. So most of the training was focused on engineer training as we're we're kind of preparing for an engineer test coming up. So we're doing a lot of engineer training, and that's involves pumping, drafting, driving the fire apparatus. Also vehicle extrication, large area search and rescue, structural collapse, and electrical emergencies for the EMS portion. So for public education interaction, myself and a couple members of the fire department attended the first responder health and wellness event down in San Luis, and that was a great event. It was very eye-opening to see. It wasn't just for fire department personnel, it was for all first responders, dispatchers, and everything, and they were from all over the country that came down and presented there, and it was very eye-opening and it's a great event. And I would definitely encourage anybody that wants to attend next year. They're coming back next year as well. So great event, and I wanted to send out a special thank you to Tony Stafford from Red Cross. He donated, himself and Bob Pudney from CERT donated some different emergency preparedness tools for a gift basket for that event. So it was, I want to extra special thank you to those guys for doing that. So, and then moving on with public education. So Cal Poly's doing their WUI class is doing a presentation on the wildfire protection plan that they're redoing, and so with the help of the Fire Safe Council, they're putting that together. So we had a tour at our fire station for that purpose, and that was a great event as well. So, and then finally, myself and General Manager McElhaney and Gordon Heinrich attended the Mill Valley evacuation plan or event up in Mill Valley, California, and that was a significant event. It was great to be up there and see how they organized that event, and it was we got quite a great example of what we could potentially do in our area, as Mill Valley is very similar to our town. Moving on to public service. So we had 1 business inspection, 3 defensible space inspections, residential inspections, and 6 smoke detector changes. With that concludes my report. I did want to mention, although this wasn't in the month of April, but we just had last week the Thank You Firefighters fundraiser. And as you guys know, so the totals, I mean, what an overwhelming event. I can't even thank our citizens for all of their support for our firefighters. It was overwhelming, you know, to be up there and see what they were doing for us, and that was just unbelievable. And so the total that I have, hopefully, what I was told so far is that our citizens raised $117,000 for our fire department, and that was, again, blown away. So I just wanted to thank our community for that, for sure. So it's all because of them. Absolutely. So, again, overwhelming, speechless. It was amazing. So
Yeah, it was a really wonderful event. Okay.
that concludes my report. Open any
Okay.
questions.
Yeah, one moment. Board members.
I agree. It was an absolutely well-run, wonderful event, and congratulations on all the support you got. But I just wanted to let you know that there's mowing going on all around Lodge Hill. I'm thrilled. I mean, it's a little bit early, I think, but Mike Rice is out there on his tractor just mowing away, so that's good.
To that point as well, so the Fire Safe Council, as you know, they have the grant for our properties, the CCSD properties. They began work on those properties this morning. So I've been in close contact with Dan Turner from Fire Safe Council and with the contractor that they've awarded the grant to. So working very closely with them, and they're moving pretty well. Also, while we're on that topic, we just had an event up at our fire station where they came through and did a lot of work that we've never had the work done at our own fire station up at that, at our facility. And so I wish I had pictures to show before and after, but it's phenomenal. So if anybody has a chance to drive by the fire station and see what work they did, it's incredible. So we're maintaining our park properties just like the rest of the community is as well.
Director Gray?
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, thank you for the report, Chief, and I guess my appreciation goes out to you and General Manager McElhenney and Mr. Heinrichs for traveling up to Mill Valley. I don't want to, go into a long report on that evacuation drill, and we'll be talking about this more, I think in next week's Fire Protection Committee meeting. But I'm just curious about how you would translate what they did to here. If you got any pointer, you got any sort of sense of how we would do it, what they did exactly, and how that could be done in Cambria from that visit.
Yeah, so I'm working pretty close with the battalion chief that I was in contact with, Chief Barnes up in Mill Valley. He works for the Southern Marin County Fire Protection District. And so I'm working with him to get kind of the after-action review from there, what they learned and what they could have done differently and what they could have changed. And so once I get that report, I'll be able to kind of give you a little bit more thorough kind of lessons learned and see what we can kind of bring here. And I feel like the main takeaway from that event was organization. So we need to be very careful and very strategic about how we organize our community down here. And they did a great job. They thought it out. It was months and months in advance. They had a lot of community outreach where people were 100% aware of it. And they still had hiccups here and there, as expected. But what we don't want to do is have an event that creates more chaos. And if it's not organized well, then we would definitely kind of defeat the purpose. But as far as what we can bring here, I saw a lot of great, and again, we can get into it at the Fire Protection Committee and talk a little bit more in depth about it, but there were a lot of great points that we could definitely emulate down here in our community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I add to that, Director? Yeah. So to Chief's credit, what we saw at that event, especially when we looked at the fair portion of it, where they had their booth set up, a lot of what they're doing, the chief has already started doing with the emergency preparedness meetings, his coordination with allied agencies, working with NCAC on the outreach. So what we've already started to do is very similar to what they do. They have an emergency preparedness commission, and we stood up the fire protection committee. So there's a lot of similarities there. And credit to Chief, who not only has been connected with Chief Barnes, but Chief Berkey went to classes with him dating back years. Oh, wow. And so they've been in connection for quite a while. And so that open line of communication, our ability to go out and drive around with the battalion chiefs and look at those different pinch points and different pitfalls of their exercise, and the conversations we had with the allied agencies. Because there's a lot of cost associated with pulling in the allied agencies for overtime. Because as you bring them in, that's usually pulling somebody off the street that normally would be patrolling or something like that. So there's a lot of things that the chief and I will be looking at for our upcoming evacuation drill that's probably a ways off because it takes a lot of coordination. I think theirs is 3 to 5 years in the making. So it'll be a lot of work moving forward to make sure we can do something similar to that. And then the budgeting process of being able to pull in staff and working with the other agencies to see if they can budget to pull in staff. So again, credit to Chief for all his hard work on this.
And to follow up as well, yeah, we saw a lot of resources, and Southern Marin has a very extensive budget that they have a lot of resources that they can allot to these specific areas. But I was very proud to be up there and see our small community and our small fire department doing a lot of the similar things that they're doing without a lot of those resources. So I felt very, very inspired and very proud of our little community. So.
Okay, any other board members? Yes, Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Scott. Chief Berkey, welcome, and thanks for your report. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions under here. I'm not sure what page, it's page 5, where it says comparison information. And so year-to-date totals from 2024 to 2025. If you could kind of explain what this means, and also the fact that last year there were like 224 incidents, and this year there's 355, which is obviously an increase of like at least a third. Could you explain like what that is? And also, and I know I doubt if there's any way to get it on the screen, but that photo of the truck on fire, did that happen here in Cambria?
Yes, so just to hit that one first. So that was actually up on 46. We did that was our auto aid agreement. We definitely serve the 46 area. So that vehicle caught on fire as it was heading up the summit there. So it wasn't in Cambria proper. But our engine, that's why I threw that photo in there. They responded to that, and they were first on scene, I believe, for that, and they had it knocked down very, very quickly. So the number of calls that we run every year, it fluctuates drastically. And you'll see as we move along through the year that some months are more busy and some are less busy, even in comparison with the 5-6 years prior. So there's no real rhyme or reason. There's nothing I can say that, this is why we're seeing an increase, or, but again, next month might be drastically lower. It's really just kind of there really isn't something that I can pinpoint that says that's why we're, tourism is higher or anything like that. That will happen in the summer, but when we're comparing it to the year prior, I don't really have any kind of a reason why, other than just it really is kind of a random kind of, when we run the calls, and what the medical aids look like, vehicle accidents, all of those things, it's really hard to tell, what's going to increase or decrease those call volumes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Okay, and none in, yes. Mr. Heinrichs, please.
I'd just like to comment that that was an excellent trip to be there in person, although I had seen previous training events they had put on over the past 5 years. Last year they did not put one on, but this was the biggest one involving all the agencies. But as Chief Berkeley was indicating, and the manager, that there is a budget that they put by the county. I think it's like 3% that goes into a tax that supports all these instead of coming out of the general fund. So that's what we need to consider for future use to compensate for maybe some of the funding. But the biggest thing that I got involved with that might be of value is they have a LADRIS, L-A-D-R-I-S system that they feel is the Genesis and the other units who are using for determining the time of evacuation and routing is obsolete now. And you can see on the screen actual real time of where people were, how they were evacuating, and the time restraints that what they were able to get out of their areas. And if the fire truck or whatever is going by a home that had people stressed, they could call in, and then they would have a video of actually that house and the occupants and what was going on, so that they could send people for support. So it has a great advantage and well worth the funds that I think we could put together for Cambria to do a drill probably next year, I would hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
please.
question, thank you, President Scott, for Chief Berkey about the LADRIS system. County's got that too, right? We have that, but it's not maybe developed for this Cambria as much, but the same technology is available, as I understand it.
Correct, yeah, and I don't know the extent of what their program is, but that has been, the Fire Safe Council has brought that up many times. And I can do more research and look into that, but I don't know the extent of what that program is being used for currently in our county. But it's there for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other public comment? Anybody online?
No.
Okay. Anybody in-house? All right. Thank you very much, Chief Berkey.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda then. And I'd like to ask the board members, is there anything that you would like to pull off the consent agenda? Nope. Okay. Any questions or anything like that? Nope. All right.
Comment.
Yes, comment. Yes, Vice President.
Thank you, President Scott.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on the investment report. For the folks listening, as ratepayers, that we should really be grateful for the services that Finance Manager and Administrative Manager Fritz has arranged through Optimized Investment Partners. Roughly $1,800 in monthly fees, looks like around 21 grand a year. The yield is several times what it has been in the past. I looked, page 47 of this agenda shows 111,000 of interest income year to date. So I thought, let's look back 2 years ago, this same period. $17,000 was booked in the same period 2 years ago. That's $96,000, 94 grand difference. And if you annualize that, that's about 125K. And so the district is netting well over 100,000 on those services. So that is a bargain. And the investment fees, I do have one question. The investment fees, is that on the 6.7 million of the managed investments, or on the whole 10 million in the portfolio? I assume it's on the 6.7.
Yes, it's only on the managed investments.
Yeah. So I just run out. That's like 0.3% investment fee for that active management, which is great in this field of investment management. So I just wanted to call that out. There has been a few questions in the past on the yield, how well that's doing, and just 111 grand versus 17 grand in a similar period 2 years ago. All right. Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you. And I just want to make a request that that this report be put on the next Finance Committee agenda. I think that'd be great for them to see that. Anything else from the board members?
Yep.
How about any public comment?
Yeah, public comment.
No.
Okay.
Oh, late hand. Tina Dickinson.
Okay.
Let it go.
Ms. Dickinson?
Yes, thank you, President Scott. When is the next Finance Committee meeting? I see that the one coming up was canceled.
Yes, it was. I only had 2 committee members that were able to be. Everyone is in Africa or Europe. So, it is in June. Do we have the date? 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Anything else? Any other public comment? Nope. All right. I need a motion. Yes, Vice President.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
Director Gray.
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Okay. Let's go then to regular business. First thing is the discussion and consideration of third quarter budget report for fiscal year 2024-2025. General Manager, would you like to present that, or would you like your finance person to do that?
Madam President, I'll introduce it and turn it right over.
Okay.
Agenda item 6A, discussion and consideration of third quarter budget report for fiscal year 24-25. During the third quarter of fiscal year 24-25, there were 5 budget adjustments. These are included in the budget. The board adopted the CIP list and updated it to reflect the activities from July 1, 24 through March 31st, 2025. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Fritz.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the third quarter budget report, and this went before the Finance Committee on April 14th and was recommended to bring to the board with a 5-0 vote. This is 75% of the fiscal year budget and activity. Believe it or not, we are entering our last quarter for the year. Everything is, there's nothing of note that's significant in here, and I did call out the budget adjustments, which I included a handout at the end of the report that kind of details out what those are. And yeah, with that, I will take any questions, unless you'd like me to go through it more in detail.
Is there a desire for her to do that, board members? No? Okay, any questions? Comments? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, my only comment is thank you for, on page 96, the debt listing, with the addition of the original debt amount on there. This is everything I've heard the community ask for. So that is really a clear picture of the small number of debt line items we have. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board members? Okay, let's take public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Farmer.
Nothing to be sorry about, thank you. So on page 66, hopefully I have this correct. Excuse me. So this is regarding the WRF. So I'm noticing down here, this is down near the bottom. And so well, first off, let me say this. At the top where it says original total budget and then current total budget. And if I scroll down here to expense total, for the original total budget, it's $1,139,000. For the current total budget, I assume this is for the year for the WRF, $1,852,000. So first, I'd like to know why such a drastic difference in those two numbers? And are you actually anticipating in some fashion or another that the cost for the WRF is going to be slightly below $2 million? Am I misunderstanding all this?
No, thank you for the question, Director Farmer. So after the preliminary budget is approved in June, and it's put in place, so that the preliminary budget is what, when it's approved by the board, is what you're seeing as the original total budget, which includes, the forecasting for the revenues and the operating expenditures for the year, and any new CIP items, the capital improvement projects that have been approved for the year. The current total budget column is reflected of, I believe in August, we bring forward encumbrance roll forwards with the final budget. So that's taking any capital projects that we've been working on and getting the board approval to bring those forward, any balances forward to the next year to continue those projects. And so that's where you'll see the difference between the original total budget and the current total budget. And so for the WRF specifically, you can see right above where you're looking at that 1.8, you'll see the line item for the WRF 2-month reserve for operations is listed in there for $713,000. So at some point when the WRF came to be, this was before my time, there was a decision made, I'm assuming by the board, that we needed to withhold a certain amount every year for operations in case we needed to operate it. So that reserve is up to 713,000, and so we roll it forward every year, and so we do bookmark that in there. And no, I don't expect to spend that 713,000 this year. And you'll see in the preliminary budget, I've been working with the utility manager, if we are going to run the WRF, you know, to include some of those operating expenditures in the 25-26 preliminary budget. I hope that answers your question, Director Farmer.
So it sounds to me from what you're saying that we're still going to be spending $1.139 million on the WRF this year.
That was the plan. I haven't done an analysis to see where we feel like we're going to be ending up at this year. This is funded by rates. So if you can look over in the fourth column, fiscal activity, so far we have spent $866,000, and we have two months left of activity.
Okay, well, it's interesting that even though the facility isn't running, there's still fiscal activity, so.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to create a little humor, if that can be done on the WRF, so. All right, well, thank you so much for your time and your information, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yes, Director Gray.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Just to follow up on that, because there might be some confusion about the reserve for the operation of the WRF. Every year there is a surplus of revenues that are being collected and not spent. My question is, are we no longer adding to that reserve at this point, or is it still being, because that was what we were doing for like 5 years, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I have stopped adding to that reserve because we are technically at a 2-month operating reserve. So it's something we could maybe discuss at Finance Committee to see if, you know, and maybe bring in the utility manager to see going forward if we want to change that policy or what we want to do. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I could pull it up if you're interested, but the actual reserves for the WRF are upwards of $1 million+. I think it's about 1.1 or 1.2 million. So the reserves are more than the 713,000 that has been budgeted here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gray. Okay. Anything else from the board members? Let's go ahead and take public comment then. The first one is Christine Heinrichs.
Good morning, Christine Heinrichs in Cambria. Yes, thanks to that very generous fundraiser for the fire department, which Chief Berkey noted raised $117,000. On page 83 of the agenda, the fire department budget includes $70,000 to remodel the kitchen, $45,000 for turnout lockers and storage, $40,000 for fencing, and other expenses. Donations that were raised to cover specifically those items and more. The items in the budget show over $155,000. Since those expenses are now offset by no donations, but were committed in the budget, this amount is now accounted for, but does not need to be spent. And that could be, at your discretion, applied to the skate park contingency requirements. That could now help to fulfill that, and the skate park could now go out for bids. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another slip, and that slip is for Margie Perez Cesar.
Hi, thank you for having me, President Scott. And I want to also commend all of you board members that attended the fire department fundraiser and also attended the skate park fundraiser. And I think that this is really important as we look at the budget and how responsive our community is. So not only did many of you show up for that, as well as many of our Cambria supporters. And I think this is what's wonderful about being in our town is that when we see a need, we step up. And there can be multiple needs in our community and that we step up to help. And when there is people that are like our leaders, our business leaders who support us, and they also plan fundraisers, and I just want to update you on our fundraisers for the skate park. We'll be helping the budget for next year as we're raising money like crazy every single day. And I posted on Facebook, and if you're not on Facebook, I want to give a shout out to Jim, who is the treasurer for Cambria Community Council, who's been really busy with our deposits, and it's looking really positive. And we also have a great community that has just given so much financial support, people donating everything from $1 to $100 for a cookie. So I just want to commend all of our leaders in town that step up, and when they see a need, they help meet it. And so I think this should also be a part of an overlap with strategic plan, that we do have people that are really well aware of when we have a need and will help us. And so we have many opportunities to raise more money, and we're really excited about that, and I wanted to update you as you look at the budget. We also have people who are so optimistic. We had Jimmy Panetta's staff say that they want to be part of our ribbon cutting for the skate park, and we said, oh yes, definitely, it'll happen. And so I just want to tell you that we really appreciate all the people in the community that step up to help when there is a need in this town. And it's not either or. I mean, we have so many leaders that support, Lions Club that has multiple causes that they support, Rotary, and they both have been great supporters of Skate Cambria, and we appreciate all the people in town that have been so supportive. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in house? Yes, sir.
Good morning, I'm Scott Anderson, a Cambria resident, and I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Before each board meeting, Christine Heinrich sends out a limited group an email detailing what's going to be discussed and her take on some of the topics. This week, something disturbing caught my eye. I'll summarize her comment. Beginning her quote, following the February payment of $293,000 on the district's $12.1 million certificates of participation for our wastewater plant, I asked the Finance Committee how much debt Cambria is carrying and what it's costing the district. Considering that neither board member nor the finance manager had a direct answer to the debt question, it would be an excellent use of staff time to discern and clarify Cambria's debt situation for all concerned. That's the end of the quote. First, I hope the condition I just described does not exist. Second, the fact that this information can be accessed by individual ratepayers reviewing hundreds of pages of data and dozens of hours of analysis is not an excuse for not doing it yourself with staff help as part of your duty. I hope all board members can describe at a high level how much debt Cambria carries. I hope each of you can describe how it's structured and how our $12 million wastewater investment has netted out over the last 4 years. I expect that you now understand whether this advanced loan approach was in Cambria's best interest, or with several years of hindsight, a pay-as-you-go approach would have been better. I expect the board to do this work on behalf of all Cambria ratepayers. All ratepayers expect this because we elected you to effectively manage millions of dollars of our investment on our behalf. I also expect all of this because it's a business basic. It's a fundamental responsibility of your job to understand how the money is being spent and how our long-term financial decisions are performing. This is a business basic. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. And that's why I want that form with, that you just did, the debt at the next, investment and then also the debts. That information is readily available. Yes, Director Gray.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, a couple things about the debt. I mean, I was looking at page 96 of the agenda packet, which has our debt status, current debt status. Is that what we're talking about here, or is there something more elaborate that we need to be doing? I'm kind of curious about that.
I believe that this
That is, in fact, what
yeah.
Ms. Heinrich was talking about.
Right.
Another point I wanted to help clarify, maybe go back to the general manager on this, but also Ms. Fritz. The fire department, the firefighters event, raised money for some projects, including the kitchen remodel, that are in the capital improvement list, but however, they are not budgeted projects. That's something, maybe it's an important point to make. They're priority 3 projects, which means they're not budgeted. And so this didn't replace any money that's in the budget.
Right.
And I want to make sure I'm right about that.
Correct. If you look at page 81, the legend, it'll show you the ranking, and those projects that were raised money for are ranked 3, which means a future need. So they did indeed raise funds that are taking some future needs off our list, which is wonderful, but anything with a B is what has actually been budgeted. And that for this year is $15,000 for the ballistic vests.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Director Dean.
I just wanted to let you know, President Scott, that I was involved with the whole CIP financing process for the SST program, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and Ms. Fritz and go over how the whole thing took place, if you would like.
Thank you. No other board members? Any other public comment in-house?
Yes, or via Zoom.
Okay, via Zoom, please.
Tina Dickinson.
Okay. Ms.
Thank you.
Dickinson?
Yes, thank you. So in the general manager's letter of May 6th, he referred to the project out on San Simeon Creek Road as the new water treatment facility. I don't know how anybody could call it a new water treatment facility after in November it will have been built 11 years ago. So it's far from new. The other issue is the amount of money that we continue to pay for this project that may never get a permit. So this board, you've been there for a while, other boards, and you keep blaming it on, of course, the original board from 2014. No question there. And many of us tried very, very hard to stop it, but it didn't happen. And so you've all taken positions, you've run as directors to take up all of the issues that confront you. I would say at this point, with the amount of money that continues to go out, and my calculations are up to about 38 million and growing for this project. And if anybody wants to dispute that, you show me your numbers. This is outrageous. We cannot continue this. Not a drop of water other than for testing has been produced. So I think it's high time the district maybe sell this, whatever they can of this project, and look at the Clyde Warren Reservoir, because there's nothing else that makes sense in this town. You can keep trying to go out for brine waste disposal. You haven't gotten anywhere yet, and I doubt that you ever will. The ZLD is a project that regional boards across the state have never even permitted. So we're a guinea pig once again. And I just don't understand it. I mean, to take the ratepayers' money, charge us more for rates is just inconceivable from my perspective. And I think you need to take a hard look at it and get this thing out of the way, because it's never going to work, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. Anyone else online?
Yes, Christina Galloway.
Okay, Christina Galloway. Ms. Galloway?
Hi, Christina Galloway from Cambria. I just wanted to say in regard to the financing with the conversation about the skate park and the fire department fundraiser and funds. I mean, with financing, sometimes there does need to be an either or. I think that's just how money works. But what there doesn't need to be is personal attacks on the fire department or the fire chief. So I would just ask the people who are saying this doesn't need to be an either or to really recognize that yes, if there's only a certain amount of money to go around, sometimes we have to make hard decisions, but also those hard decisions don't need to divide us or lead to personal attacks. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galloway. Anybody else online?
No.
Okay. Anybody else in-house? All right. So I think we're ready unless a board member has any other comment. Nope, we're ready for a motion. Yes, Director.
Yeah, I can get the wording right here.
Okay.
Yeah, I move that the board approve and adopt the third quarter budget report for fiscal year 2024-25.
I'll second that.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Thomas?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye. Okay. Let's go to agenda item 6B then. Mr. McElhaney, will you please present this agenda item?
Yes, Madam President. Agenda item 6B, discussion and consideration regarding biennial review of debt management policy number 2155. There's no fiscal impact associated with this item. Ms. Dodson and myself were reviewing this policy as a part of our applying for the District of Distinction Award, and just recognize that it may not need to come before the board every 2 years for review. That can be, done at the Finance Committee meeting, and if the board feels it needs to be brought forward, we can do it. So we essentially just changed one line of the policy to let it stand as is, because it was updated in 2022, and that's why it's before you.
Okay. Board members? No? Well, I have a couple things. Okay. The first thing is on page 101. Perhaps Mr. Carmel can answer these questions if it's something about what needs to happen legally. On page 101, in the first paragraph that's there, it's a partial paragraph, there's a word that says long-term debt financing will not generally be considered appropriate for current operating expenses and routine maintenance expenses. So my question is, will it ever be considered, and is generally in there so that in case of an emergency, we may do that?
I would actually defer to Ms. Fritz on the issue. Did that come out?
Not being a legal issue, then I think it's up to the discretion of the board if you wanted to change that language in the policy.
And I think we spoke, Madam President, that my interpretation of that in this policy is if the district got into essentially enough financial trouble, there could be a need to do some long-term debt financing just to maintain operations and salaries and staff and things of that nature. But typically, we wouldn't go into long-term debt to fund things like that. It would be a normal practice, and that's the way I interpret it.
So is everybody okay with leaving generally in there? Okay. Okay, and my next question is on page 102. I would like to have a explanation of what interest rate swaps are.
I do not have an explanation other than what's listed here, and I would have to research it a little bit, and I could bring it to the finance committee.
Okay. Okay, yes, Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. And when I saw the amount of text in here about interest rate swaps, I thought, what on earth these are? And so, yeah, I spent a half hour this morning on that. And, you know, somebody owes money, fixed rate interest, right? Someone else owes money, and it's on a variable rate. And they agree to swap. You know, each individual maintains the principal. In other words, we still owe what we owe, principal, but instead of paying the fixed rate, we would pay the variable rate. And entities do that for a variety of reasons. To my knowledge, we've never done it. We probably never will, but it's kind of easy to figure out. It's one of those things that we can by the regulations that limit us. So I'm sure Mr. Carmel would advise us, don't rule it out just because we've never tried it.
Right.
But that's the nature of it. It's very complex and has to do with, different entities' balance sheets and future needs for certainty and different risk profiles. So with that complicated explanation, right, we'll probably never do it, but yeah.
Thank you, Vice President Thomas. Yes, Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Scott. So getting back to this sentence on page 101 that you referenced earlier, long-term debt financings will not generally be considered appropriate for current operating expenses and routine maintenance expenses. So I'm thinking back to, and I guess I'm kind of alluding in some ways to the comments that were made earlier from Scott Anderson regarding Christine Heinrich's comment in her monthly overview of what we do on the agenda. So with regard to this particular statement here, and I'm thinking about the $12 million bond that we got to address all the necessary improvements at the wastewater facility, which were unfortunately long overdue, and we had to do this. So is this considered, because I'm no expert on finance, except my own, barely. Long-term debt financings, does that apply to what I just mentioned with regard to the $12 million bond for the wastewater plant?
Those projects would not be considered operating expenditures or routine maintenance. That's a long-term capital project. So this is specifically saying long-term debt financings will not generally be considered appropriate for current operating expenditures or routine maintenance. And what's happening at the wastewater plant with the SST project does not fall into either of those categories.
It doesn't fall, okay, it doesn't fall into current operating expenses?
No.
Okay. I know you know what you're doing, and apparently I didn't at this moment, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Yes, Director Gray.
Yeah, just a point to clarify that too, that usually the long-term interest rate, long-term borrowing is for capital assets that are going to, for the life of which is comparable to the life of the loan, ideally longer. But there's a rule in there, I think there's a rule in this policy that has a 20% the life can no be no shorter than 20% less than the term of the loan, which is kind of pushing it. But that's the idea. So if they're for long-term, what you're borrowing or buying with a loan is going to be around for the life of the loan. It's like a house, or a car. It's the same kind of concept.
Thank you, Director Gray. Okay, anything else from the board members? Okay. How about in-house? Any public comment? How about online?
No.
Okay, so we're ready for a motion then.
Yeah.
Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Thank you, President Scott. It occurs to me, we didn't discuss the reason for the revision, and the last sentence, which basically mandates a every 2 years review, that's not in many of the other policies, and as noted in the staff report, the board can raise policy revisions at any time, so I certainly support that revision.
Okay.
So I suppose I will move that we approve the revised debt management policy.
Second the motion?
Yes.
Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Director Gray.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Okay, let's go to agenda item 6C.
Thank you, Madam President. Agenda item 6C, discussion and consideration of acceptance of funding from PG&E Fleet Program and San Luis Obispo Air Pollution Control District Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant and adoption of Resolution 26, 2025, amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 final budget. I'll turn it over to Mr. Green. He's really closely with this.
Great. So last time we touched on the funding that we've got. Utilities Department worked really hard in collaboration with APCD and also PG&E on this. So you guys approved that. Thank you so much. Now we're ready to install. However, we did not budget for this prior to this year. We didn't know that this funding and all this was going to be available. So yeah, this would just approve the budget so we could go ahead and get all this infrastructure that we already currently have and been permitted to installed and in use. This would also be able to, the charging unit itself would be able to charge all of our future EV trucks and the EV tractor as well, should we purchase or procure one of those as well. So if you guys have any questions on it, let me know.
Board members have any questions? Yes, Director Dean.
I just wanted to say that this was reviewed by the R&I committee and we unanimously agreed with this.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Director Gray? Oh. Okay. Any public comment in-house? Oh, Harry. Director Farmer, please.
Director Farmer, thank you so much. So I just wanted to comment here, or just observe that it appears that we have two vehicles that are being addressed in this particular item. And then I noticed that a little bit further down where it says, additionally, under discussion, additionally, the department has budgeted for another on-call truck. So it appears that right now we're moving forward and having 3 electric vehicles for the district. Correct?
It will be 2. We currently have one Lightning for an on-call truck. We'll be purchasing a second on-call truck for wastewater in fiscal year 25-26. So currently only have one, plan for 2 at this time.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, moving further down the road, how long do you feel it would take for all of the vehicles that the district has to be EV vehicles? Is that possible?
It would be possible for like our on-call trucks or our lighter duty pickups. Hauling around a 40,000 pound vac trailer, there's not an electric vehicle out that's capable of handling or equipped to handle that up and down our roads and streets here. So I could say over probably the next 5 years, we could start to replace some of those aging vehicles that are 10 years or over 100,000 miles. And that's probably about an additional 3 vehicles or 4 vehicles, an additional 2 vehicles for each that we could reduce that carbon transmission. So But again, that would be over the next 2 fiscal years following this.
All right, thank you. And obviously, I didn't expect the Vector truck to be replaced by an electric vehicle, but
Well,
thanks.
hopefully someday they'll come up with an adequate one that will replace it, but as of right now, they don't have anything.
That would be quite something, to say the least. So thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Director Gray.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Green on the future. It's Director Farmer's question about how many EVs of various kinds are going to be having. This is infrastructure for charging. Does this project, as it is now, is that enough for, how many a fleet? Basically, will this basically create all the infrastructure we need to have all of the planned EVs we eventually have?
So the way we kind of strategized for this was to have this one level 2 or faster charging level 2. This is a 45 miles per hour of charge, which would also reflect on the EV tractor should we procure that. But we saw one charging piece of equipment good enough for 2 vehicles. We could kind of lead and lag the charge on both of those vehicles. Should we proceed with those following 2 vehicles, I would look to procuring another charging piece of equipment and some funding for that as well.
Thank you.
We would, could follow up on that a little bit, we would have to look a little bit further into, that's quite a bit of electrical pull. So after we complete our SST program and reduce some of our energy, or have some energy consumption, we could see where we could add that at a plant, which would be both location beneficial, and then where we'd have the room or to accept that load from that charger as well.
So just to summarize, this is installation for 2 vehicles essentially, right?
Yeah, this would cover our 2 vehicles.
All right. Public comment? Do we have anybody in-house for public comment? Yes, Mr. Heinrichs.
Very exciting to see the opportunities now existing for electric vehicles, which was being opposed several years ago, is not being possible. So it's great that the board is realizing this direction for energy efficiencies. But as you can tell, if you're using only a 220 charge volt charger, it takes probably 8 to 10 hours to charge your vehicles. I'm sure Jim has checked this out, but they do have DC chargers, which you can do it in 45 minutes to an hour. And that's something I would think he might want to investigate his money into. That was a comment, and also addition of solar to pay for this additional energy that we're going to be paying PG&E instead of the free sunshine.
Thank you, Mr. Heinrichs. Yes, Mr. Green, did you want to comment?
So we've looked into the DC aspect, that direct charging with that mass of amperage hitting it really degrades the batteries at a faster rate. It's been studied. I'm on my 3rd electric vehicle now, so I know the impact of direct charging. So that would not be something that I would look to do or purchase or procure for regular charging for the district.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else in-house? How about online?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments from the board? Do I have a motion? Oh, yes, Director Dean.
I move we accept the funding from PG&E Fleet Program and San Luis Obispo County Air Pollution Control District Charging and Fuel Infrastructure Grant and adopt Resolution 26-2025, amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 final budget.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and second that. Thank you.
Okay.
Director Dean.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
Director Gray.
Aye.
Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Okay. So let's go ahead and go on to agenda item 6D. Mr. McElhaney.
Thank you, Madam President. Agenda item 6D, discussion and consideration of strategic plan update. No fiscal impact with this item. On March 3rd, 2025, the Board of Directors held a day-long special meeting workshop for the strategic plan update. facilitated by Mr. Clark, in which the community was able to view. The Board of Directors adjourned to the special meeting workshop to March 4th, and the Board of Directors updated the district's mission statement, core values, core areas, 5-year goals, and objectives status report. The board reviewed the vision statement, but made no changes. On the 10th of April, 2025, Director Gray requested that staff provide updates to the strategic plan objectives. Those are attached here, and we're ready to discuss.
Okay. Thank you very much. Board members?
I'll just ask, maybe we can go over a quick rundown of the changes, of the updates, just so we know what we're asking questions about. 'Cause I know they're highlighted in the text here, but I want to make sure we're not going to miss anything.
Sure, you would like me to go down all of the red line changes?
That'd be great.
Absolutely. Okay, beginning with Water Services General. Complete the Stewart Street tank construction, going down to supporting objectives, develop a funding plan. We've updated that to second quarter 2025. The staff has met a few different times, Mr. Green, Ms. Fretz, and myself, and taken a look at our reserves. And so we plan to fund that through the reserves. So we've updated that objective.
And those reserves are water service reserves?
Those are the water, yeah. Water fund, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move on unless there's further questions. Permanent replacement of the San Simeon water line and effluent line. Supporting objective, engineering an RFP for construction of the water line and effluent line. We anticipate Cannon being finished with their design in the third quarter of 2025. Potential installation date of second quarter 2026. The caveat is we have a funding issue. And so we've pushed it to the second quarter of 2026. As you can imagine, pulling our reserves from the water fund to support the Stewart Street tank, we only have so much reserves. So we ultimately have a funding issue. Mr. Green and I have talked about the temporary line. While not ideal, while State Parks doesn't really like it, that temporary line, and I'll defer to Mr. Green, will serve us for a significant amount of time. Again, not ideal, but that will buy us some time when we start looking at where we're going to fund this effluent line. We also have to go out to RFP once we get the designs to see what it would cost for construction. The new alignment with that effluent line, with State Parks not wanting it in their sensitive habitat areas, has now moved it to be trenched along Highway 1. That has probably doubled the cost from what we expected a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we were going to struggle to pay for it at the original cost, and now it's doubled. So that's the update on that.
Yes.
And I'll turn over to Mr. Green if you want to add anything.
Due to the sensitive area, there are certain times of the season that we can't go in and construct in certain locations there. So that's why we kind of push that out to next year, or the second quarter of next year. That'll be the seasonality of it. We'll be able to construct at that time, and then we should have funding arrangements performed by then.
Director Gray?
Yeah, I guess I'll follow up on the funding problem, the funding gap. What exactly is, at this point, is the estimate for that project? With all the things we've talked about with having to reroute it and so forth, where are we at with the money needed and the money that we have available?
The closest estimate I've had most recently is 4.2.
Okay, 4.2 million?
Yep. That's for both lines.
Yeah.
The water and the wastewater.
And at this point, there's no funding source determined yet, right?
No, Director Gray. We have spoken with Alex Handler to look at our debt servicing ability, and based on current rates, we wouldn't even be able to go out for long-term financing.
Okay.
So we will have to look at that in the future.
Yeah. I think we're kind of hopping to the next item too, so.
Yeah.
Let that.
Okay, without any other questions, next supporting objective, develop a funding plan. We've put that, an updated target completion of second quarter 2026. That funding could be based on some of the discussions the board had us undertake with San Simeon. So without going too in-depth on this, because we're in very preliminary discussions with the county, Mr. Green and I did meet with the county of San Luis Obispo, took a look at some potential synergy between San Simeon and the district, specifically with our SST upgrades, being able to treat their water and wastewater. With that, there are several agencies involved, not only the county, but state parks and Hearst Castle, which is one of the most revenue-generating state parks. And so there could be some coordination with county and state parks on a funding plan that not only would help fund the effluent line, water line, but a third line to San Simeon to treat their water and wastewater. We haven't even entertained those, we haven't even got close yet to really talking to those entities. However, LAFCO is setting up a meeting with all of the entities. I just spoke with Mr. Fitzroy last week, and so those dates haven't been set, but he's going to be reaching out soon. So we'll start to engage in those discussions. If there is some funding and support to be had from the county or state parks, that is why Mr. Green and I think, you know, we potentially could delay the construction of the water and effluent line until we get deeper into these conversations about San Simeon. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Okay.
And no questions this time. I guess regionalization is sort of what you're talking about, that term.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to research long-term water supply and storage solutions. Supporting objective update as needed, the residential and commercial water conservation plan. That's anticipated with a target completion date of first quarter 2026, and that is in process. The big one, gain approval of the coastal development permit for the water reclamation facility. We are targeting fourth quarter 2025. The information hold is still under review with the county. Now, obviously, this was posted before we had a follow-up with the county of San Luis Obispo with subsequent information hold questions. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my GM report, or I can go in depth here if you would like.
Go ahead and wait.
Okay. Moving on to resolve the brine waste disposal issue. Supporting objectives, submit the addendum to the SEIR and additional scope. That target, the updated target date, the original target date for that is second quarter 2025, and that is scheduled to be on the June agenda. Relocate Rodeo Grounds pump station. We have just updated that target date to fourth quarter 2028. Ultimately, that's a funding issue as well. Moving on, I'm trying to find my red here. Our next update, unless I missed one, because I'm working through my iPad here, would be facilities and resources, would be the next update that's in red. Complete skate park project. We've placed that at fourth quarter 2026. And again, that was based on funding. Obviously, happy to finish that and complete that earlier if the funds are raised. Grant funding was anticipated in April 2025. However, we're waiting on the federal government. From the district perspective, we have turned everything we need in, and it's just pending funding. And I spoke with the granting agency a week and a half ago, and they kind of gave me the shrug, like, we're waiting for the feds. So we will update the community as soon as we can on that. So we moved that anticipated funding date to May, but we'll kind of see where that goes. Moving on in F&R, under the skate park, explore alternatives to the current plans for the skate park. That was completed on 3/13 when the board decided that we'll keep it in its existing location. And that's been updated with the board minutes. Board approval of the community park plan. That was updated to completed 3/13. The board received and filed the community park plan, so we updated that. Develop a management plan for the CCSD owned undeveloped parcels. We pushed that to fourth quarter 2026 based on discussions with district council, staff priorities, projects within the district, and the difficulty of actually divesting parcels. And Mr. Carmel can chime in on this, but essentially I've met with the ad hoc. We've pushed this off significantly. We're going to look at essentially what it would cost just in legal hours to divest even a few properties, let alone what we can divest and what we can't. So we've kind of put this one on the back burner as considering all the district priorities that we have right now and some of the district projects. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you would like to ask Mr. Carmel any details on why we pushed it, he's available. No? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Director Gray.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks,
so
President
sorry.
Scott. Yeah, actually, that's a topic that I've been interested in for a long time, and I maybe Mr. Carmel can fill us in on that. But there are changes in state law that are constantly happening in this area, and as I understand it now, and maybe you can clear this up, Mr. Carmel can clear this up. The old rule under which we sold off the pocket park next to the post office, and which exempted that property from being, from having to be basically marketed to all the potential providers of low-income housing. The state laws have changed since then, so that I think there's no real threshold now. I think every property I divest that's, say, not under a conservation easement is potentially available for affordable housing. And of course, that makes it very, as General Manager McElhenney was pointing out, a big burden on us. Maybe I could, if Mr. Carmel could give us the current state of the law, just to clear it up for me and the public, it'd be great.
I'd be glad to try.
Yeah.
The Surplus Lands Act, which is what you're talking about, it went through extensive changes in 2020 and 2022, I believe. And they've developed some voluminous regulations and guidelines that are associated with them. Each property essentially would have to go through that process, which requires sending a notice of availability to a large group of stakeholders that's run through HCD, Housing and Community Development, at the state. And I could go on and would probably misstate a lot of it, but it's a timely process and an expensive process that again would have to be undertaken with regard to each of those properties. Hopefully to find an exemption available so that we could bypass having to actually provide notice to all of those that may be interested in the properties and then going through negotiations. And there are several layers to this process. But the long and the short of it is it slows things up, makes them more expensive. And I mean, I hope that gives a general explanation. I could go into more detail. I think the lots and many of those lots, are encumbered by conservation easements, other instruments that make sale of the property impossible, frankly. So those would just have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, which could take a lot of time. That's why you see the timeline changing. I hope that gave some kind of an answer. I'd be glad to follow up if there are specific questions.
No, thank you. Yeah, it is a good, that helps clarify it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, with no other questions, I'll move on. We're still under...
You're on relocation of the rodeo grounds facilities.
I think I just left the undeveloped parcels.
Yes.
Okay. So scrolling down, moving into administration and finance.
No, what about relocation of rodeo grounds facilities?
I don't see any updates on that, Madam President.
No, but I do want to say something, which is why I butted in.
Okay, my apologies.
Is since we've decided to go ahead and add the offices to the administrative offices, we may want to tweak how that's written for next time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We do have that for fourth quarter 2027, so I didn't really update that.
No, it's okay.
But we can definitely bring some more updates forward during the next review.
Okay.
And updated timelines.
Okay.
Okay, without any other questions, I'll move on to administration and finance. Explore the opportunities related to the dissolution of San Simeon CSD. Kind of touched on that a little bit. So we updated that target completion date to fourth quarter 2025, pending several stakeholder meetings and conversations, perhaps even working with the WRF ad hoc, because this will play into that a little bit. Contact the county is slow and appropriate agencies, that supporting objective. We met with the county of San Luis Obispo on 3/18, and we do have some future meetings pending with local stakeholders. Investigate the revenue model of the general fund. We just updated these completion, because these dates weren't in there last time, so we've updated those targets to all fourth quarter 2025, all the way down to include retention of staff, long-term funding framework. With that, as we saw during our last special meeting, we are going to go into a professional service agreement with Waterworth that's going to help us with that long-range funding model. And we're going to be meeting with them and have been meeting with them and should have that agreement in place shortly.
Yes, Director Dean.
Okay, so we haven't come to an agreement with Waterworth Financial yet. So when they did the report during the meeting on the 24th, they didn't charge us for that, correct?
No, Director.
No, they didn't charge.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Good? Okay, that sums up the changes.
Okay, anything else from the board members? Okay, any public comment in-house? Yes, Ms. Cesar.
Thank you. I did like to comment on the part about the skate park. If we get the funds earlier, I'm glad that you're considering that we can go ahead and go out to bid. And we're feeling very positive about that. So we do appreciate that comment, that if the money gets here before, because we do know that as time goes on and we take longer to go out to bid, that cost will increase, and that makes sense. So the sooner the better, so that was really great to hear. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in-house? How about online?
No.
Okay. Anything else from the board members? Do I have a motion?
I want to phrase it properly here. I think we
Well,
accept.
just be very patient. It's okay.
Okay, here we are. I move that the board accept and file the strategic plan update.
Second.
Okay.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Vice President Thomas.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Okay. So I think we can go ahead and do agenda item 6E.
Thank you, Madam President. Agenda item 6E, discussion and consideration of NCAC liaison appointment. There's no fiscal impact associated with this item. And I'll actually turn it over to Vice President Thomas.
Well, thank you, General Manager McElhaney, and there are several reasons I'd like to hand off the role at this time, but for now, let's just say Wednesday mornings are, I'm not much of a night owl, and the Wednesday evening meetings on third Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, I'm up early, make my way down to the FFRP tool shed, which is right behind the vets hall here, gathering up the tools we need for the volunteer invasive plant removal program on Fiscalini Ranch Preserve. And that's a true labor of love. We've got sometimes as many as a dozen folks out there removing thistles, radish, mustard, you name it, poison hemlock, French broom, and that's what enables, when we're walking on the boardwalk, the poppies and coastal seaside daisies. Yeah, a couple dozen years ago, that was fields of mustard, and so it takes a village. So it would be helpful if someone would take over the NCAC liaison role, so this early bird doesn't have to turn into a night owl on third Wednesdays.
Okay. Anything, any other board members have comments? Yes, Director Farmer.
Yes, I'd like to know if Ms. Galloway, who is the chairperson of NCAC, is still attending the meeting. I believe she spoke earlier, and see what comments she has to make on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Galloway, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. Please.
Oh, particular comments. No, I'm thankful to have you guys in whatever capacity. Yeah, but as I've mentioned, Karen Chrisman does an amazing job of the minutes, if that's something that's supportive for you guys. Otherwise, we are happy to have another liaison. So, yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Galloway. Yes, Director Farmer.
Well, what I'm about to say, I've given a lot of thought to. And there's a certain reluctance on my part to even comment on this. I've been the liaison for the Friends of the Fiscalini Ranch Preserve for a long time. I was involved in the saving of the ranch going back over 30 years ago. So I have a deep affection for the Fiscalini Ranch and being involved with, like I say, reporting on their monthly board meetings. I know right now Vice President Thomas is involved also with the ranch. So there's a part of me that doesn't want to do what I'm about to offer. But sometimes things happen in your life and they're not necessarily what you want, but apparently it's what's needed to take place. So I am willing to become the liaison. And I understand what Ms. Galloway said with regard to Karen Chrisman, and she takes really good notes. But I'm willing to be the liaison for NCAC. If Vice President Thomas would like to be the liaison for FFRP on their meetings on Tuesday afternoons at 4 o'clock in person, which I'm sure he would have no problem doing and probably enjoy doing it. So there we are.
Thank you so much, Director Farmer. Other discussion? Yes, Director Gray?
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. I'm stepping back from this a little bit. I want to get a sense of how much we're already reporting the liaison role, I guess, of this NCAC, because I understand that the general manager, Mr. McElhenney, attends the meetings and kind of reports for the CCSD. I just wonder, I'm going to raise this question as to whether a designated CCSD liaison is, given the general manager's involvement, it may be a little superfluous. Do we need to have that level of representation?
I can touch base on it.
Yeah.
And again, this is board decision, so whatever you want to do. The chief and I are there. Mr. Green is there at times for utility updates. And as Ms. Galloway said, there's a good amount of minutes, taken. I'm happy to come and report each month in my general manager report on the NCAC and give updates there if that saves the liaison piece. I know Ms. Galloway and I have talking about how she's changing the flow of her meeting.
Right.
And at times, and this is not necessarily fair to them, but it turns into a mini CCSD meeting with so many CCSD reports. So I think there could be some benefit to potentially, not having an NCAC liaison from the board, and I'm there reporting out CCSD projects and then can come back with the minutes and the agenda and give an update my GM report, and that might help with the flow of their meeting so it doesn't get inundated with CCSD business, which they're trying to kind of move away from. So just my 2 cents.
Yes, Director Green. Sorry. You just got promoted. Green and Dean kind of rhyme. Okay, Director Dean.
Okay, so originally the purpose of having a liaison to the NCAC was just so someone would just briefly report to the NCAC on the actions that the board has already taken. And that is different from what the general manager does. Okay, and then what the liaison is supposed to do is provide a written report back to the board on what the NCAC does. So that's a little different than a manager's report.
Right.
So just wanted to point that out, because all of us as liaisons, that's what we do, is we provide a written report for the agenda on what's happened at those meetings we attend. So I don't know if that's something the general manager just wants to include in his manager's report, or to have a written report like we normally do, but I'll leave it up to the rest of you.
Yeah.
Yes, Director Gray.
Thank you, President Scott. Yeah, I was aware of, I was around, I was actually chair of the NCAC about, 13 years ago. And I remember being on the NCAC for quite a while. The CCSD had usually it was a board member would go and do a very brief report and then basically leave. Because the NCAC's role, of course, is actually not so much to oversee the CCSD or to get involved with the CCSD. It's supposed to be advisory to the county. They're supposed to be kind of, they have their role, we have our role, and there's not supposed to be any real, deep interaction between the two. I think it's gotten much more elaborate, as General Manager was saying. I'm just saying I don't want to overload us, either the board or the staff, reporting at the NCAC when it's not necessary. And I think I've also had a question for Director Farmer as to what he's contemplating. It sounds like Director Farmer wants to, he would take the NCAC liaison if Vice President Thomas took the FFRP liaison. Is that right? Just so I know, understand that?
I think you slightly misstated that I want to.
That's what you put on the table. So there's two questions.
Well, I was just being thoughtful with regard to what might need to take place.
So,
but it's, if I could remain as the liaison of FFRP, I'd be happy with that.
Okay, good to know. So my question on my comment on what General Manager McElhenney was saying is, we have to look at our NCAC involvement, maybe at the staff level, and not, devote quite as much time to it. And again, that's a staff decision. And if we have a liaison, it's more like what Director Dean's saying, just someone who reports to the board on the meeting and doesn't take even an active role in the meeting, except for maybe a brief report.
Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. And I guess two things, and one to the generous offer by Director Farmer for a swap. I must say this is much less complicated. This would be much less complicated than an interest rate swap, And if this is what ends up, I would be honored to pick up the baton in that regard. Also, to Director Gray's line of inquiry, right? Looking back over the last couple of years, the questions all come to the general manager and Chief Berkey. That's where a lot of energy is. At the time I took the handoff from Director Dean, the summaries, the way boiling down the CCSD minutes and actions for consumption in a way that's really understandable in a minute by the NCAC members was probably, there was no substitute for that other than reading the minutes, which are action minutes and don't have that context. Along comes General Manager McElhaney with twice monthly very clear descriptions of everything we've done. So that is every bit as informative as the reports that I make to the NCAC. Other than the reports to the NCAC are packaged and included, they could simply link to your latest letter from the GM and essentially have the same context. And again, the reverse, the minutes, as Chair Galloway reports that Karen Chrisman provides, are very informative. I look for what does this board need to know, so they differ a little bit, but how material is that? So I just wanted to share that perspective from the right over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Vice President Thomas. Yes, Director Farmer.
Yeah, I just want to say, and thank you, President Scott. I should probably say this, that the majority of the time I do attend the NCAC meetings via Zoom because I find them interesting. It's a totally different perspective on what's going on in our community and their interaction, let's say, with county planning, with Supervisor Gibson. It's a totally different dynamic, obviously, than what takes place here. And I feel like I am missing something if I don't know what's going on. This is just me personally. I don't know how any of the other board members feel, but I feel like what they do is a valuable service to our community, the NCAC. So I want to make mention of that since I'm talking about my reluctance, but then again, well, how do I really feel about what the NCAC does? And there's a number of bright people there that are doing this and that and so forth and make comments. And I said, boy, I hadn't thought about that myself. So I feel like what they do has value and meaning, like I said, to our community, just like we do. Our situation is different, obviously, but I just want to mention that.
Anything else from the board members? I'm wondering if we should, I have an email, I got an email from Ms. Galloway, and she said, how about we try for a couple of months without a liaison and see how it goes?
I could see not having a verbal liaison to the NCAC based on what Mr. McElhaney does or whether he wants to just provide his general manager report, but I think it's valuable to have a liaison. Like, this is the only position where someone actually speaks to the entity they're a liaison to and then reports. All the rest of the liaison positions just simply report on what happened at the meeting. I can see a benefit of still having a liaison report back to the board the way that we do with the other liaison reports. But I do, so I think it is valuable to still have a liaison. And Director Farmer is always there.
Yeah.
And actually, both of them are always at the FFRP meetings and at the NCAC meetings. But I think that the general manager's report pretty much covers everything that we are doing.
Right.
But I think it's valuable to have the report back.
Okay.
So,
So does that make sense?
Yes, so is there a recommendation?
well, before I recommend it,
Well,
does Ms. Galloway want to,
Yeah,
does she
and
wanna
we
say
also
anything?
need public
Right, yeah.
comment. So,
curious about
Ms.
that.
Galloway, would you like to make a comment?
No, I appreciate the consideration. Yeah, as the general manager mentioned, I'm just trying to kind of make sure that our meetings are getting done in a time efficient manner and, try to limit some of the redundancies. And that's across the board. That's not even just from a CCSD level. So yeah, I'm happy to test and see. I'm happy to have somebody on. I obviously love having Harry there. Um, so yeah, I'm happy with really whatever. I just appreciate the consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Galloway. I would like to take public comment on this agenda item. Is there anybody in-house who would like to comment? Anybody online?
No.
Okay, so I leave it up to you all and for someone to do a motion and then we can discuss.
I'll take a stab at a motion, because I think I'm following Director Dean's lead on this. The motion would be to appoint Director Farmer as a new liaison to the NCAC with maybe direction to staff, or that's the motion, I guess. The elaboration of it is that I think the problem is more that we've turned into our reporting to the NCAC at the staff level has gotten kind of too elaborate, too time consuming, I think too much of a discussion point at the NCAC. I think that can be scaled back, and that basically presenting whatever the general manager is presenting as his report to the public, to the NCAC, should be sufficient. Now that's advice to staff, that's direction to staff. You might want to have two motions. I think the appointment of Director Farmer could be one of them. I could do that now, but yeah, first, my motion would be at this point just to direct Director Farmer, or appoint Director Farmer to the position of liaison with NCAC. We'll start with that.
Okay, do we need a separate motion to appoint Vice President Thomas to FFRP?
I think that's a really good idea.
I think the second motion,
But
yeah.
we need a second first.
Okay, second.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Thomas?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
My
By the
question
way-
now on the appointment of Director Thomas is that, do we need to have it agendized?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
going to be my question, and it really does. I think it does need to be agendized
I think so, yeah. It's our next meeting.
so that we leave things as they are, except Director Farmer is going to be the new liaison for NCAC, and you still are FFRP until we decide otherwise.
Right, I think FFRP will be having their meeting next Tuesday, and I will attend that and say bon voyage.
No, don't. You don't know.
Oh, okay, you're right, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd be
Okay.
fine, I'd be fine with still doing it, but
Okay.
that's neither here nor there right now.
Okay.
And my question to the board on the role of staff
Yeah.
at NCAC meetings, I welcome suggestions for how to frame that as a motion, but I do think we have to be, careful keep the NCAC on track as an advisory to the county board, and we've always kind of reported them briefly as a courtesy, but we're not reporting to the NCAC, in any sort of, I guess, direct or formalized way. I think we have to be careful not to get into that role. It's
Well,
time consuming.
And the other thing is that we don't really have, I mean, I think that we can have a discussion and give suggestions to the staff, but I don't think we need to have a motion that directs them to do that, because we don't have that on the agenda. But I would defer to Mr. Carmel if he has some suggestion about that.
I think it's a pretty broad agenda description. I don't know how far you want to go, but I don't think it would be precluded. I mean, when you look at the actual bylaws on this issue, the role of the liaison is to observe the meetings of those entities to which they're appointed as liaison and report back to the board on the discussions and actions taken during those meetings on topics that relate to the community and the district. So it's narrowly defined in terms of bringing back information to this board and not participating necessarily actively in the meetings. But I think there's a lot of discretion involved in that liaison role.
So you think we could do, give direction to the staff in the form of,
I don't think that needs to be in the form of a motion, but I think that's probably most appropriate.
okay, thank you.
And I can follow up. I'm happy to attend these meetings, or if you're directing me to not attend. What I've come to gain from the NCAC is a different demographic of the community that we get a little bit of outreach to. These folks that attend NCAC don't always attend the board meetings, so there's been some nice pieces of that. Coordination with the NCAC on emergency preparedness. So there's some benefits to it, but I'm happy to follow the board's direction. And I typically don't give very long reports. It's just the problem is, and Ms. Galloway's done a good job of it, is she cuts off the ongoing conversations that get off track. So I typically try to do a brief little update on CCSD business, and then sometimes it gets caught up in the CCSD life, that she's been able to curb a bit. So happy to follow the board's direction on my participation or the fire chief's participation in NCAC.
Yes, Director Gray?
Yeah. I do not want to take away any of your discretion to interact with the NCAC, because I think obviously, there are times when it would make really good sense to give a report on something that's not, that's new or very relevant. So I don't want to, preclude any action by the staff. We want to be careful with that, but it's not. But not put staff in a liaison role.
Right.
Yeah, might be the way to put it.
Right. And do you need more direction than that?
No, Madam President.
Okay.
Clear.
Okay. All right. So I have a question for the board members. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Farmer.
There's nothing to be sorry about, President Scott. You don't need to say that to me anymore. It's fine.
Okay.
I just want to make this observation. I'm not a betting man, but I'm sure that many of you are aware that betting on sporting events is like escalating at an alarming rate in our country. So I just wanted to say this, that if somebody had made a bet prior to this meeting, well, what is the longest agenda item on today's agenda? I don't think anybody would have picked this one. So I think if you had picked this one, you would have done pretty well and then gone to Vegas with that same mindset. But that's just wanted to throw that in there.
And so, no, thank you. So I have a question. Do you want to go ahead and do the manager reports and then end the meeting? Or do you want to go have lunch and then come back?
Well, I'm ready for a break.
I'm ready for a break too, because
Okay.
we're not rushed.
Okay, good.
Manager's reports, yeah.
Good. I agree. All right. So let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting or take a break.
Half an hour.
Half an hour.
Have
Back
lunch.
at 12:30.
Yeah.
just now. New banners are up across the street.
The newly revised.
Yes, I just picked them up and just hung them just now. I'm gonna go to work, I'm a little dirty, our old banners were filthy, so I was trying carefully not to wipe my face or anything, or my white shirt.
You did a little on your own.
Did I? I was wondering, I was like.
That's such good news,
But-
because, you know, I contacted Julie probably about a month ago or
Yep.
so, she probably told me.
She did.
You know, the water is inaccurate.
Yeah.
It makes it look like we installed them.
Yes, so it's there, it's ready, you can go take a peek. I took pictures of it and I just posted it on social media, so it's there.
Thank you, Sarah.
Cushion, you know, we're getting there. We're working our fannies off. We started our $100 challenge this week. I don't know if Julie told you. I got out 500. I have volunteers walking the streets with flyers. So we printed out 500 this week and we divided them all up and divided the neighborhoods. Like we did the maps. And so we're going to do 500 each week for the month of May. So just so you know, they're going out.
You know, Margie, I wanted to mention it, but, yeah, these days I tend to sometimes not say things that I should, say things that I should, what I should have done. Is the last Friday, I was there at the fundraising at the farmer's market, for the skate park. I went through that driveway, they're mostly ones. There's $100 bills in there, and I should have brought it up. I really should have mentioned, oh, wow, man, it was like, what a number, you know, it was like.
We had four
free drug- a
four
free drug
$100
off.
Yeah, that was the start of our $100 challenge.
We made $800 in 2.5 hours.
At the
I
farmer's
should have
market.
brought it up, so you could have gotten up and said that.
And then, and then, well, when you do the ad hoc meeting,
There's always another opportunity.
there's gonna be another opportunity this afternoon to do the ad hoc, update. So there's on the agenda, it says ad hoc meetings, or, so other liaison reports and ad hoc. So you're on the ad hoc committee for skate park. And so that then. So
Our
that's
challenge started.
Yeah.
We've already been bringing in $100 bills.
Oh, and then the next day, I had leftover cookies and sold $100. So it was $900 in cookie sales.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I will not be here this afternoon. I have to go to work, but for the rest of the week.
Yeah, so that was good. So we're gonna have cookies again this week. cookies?
Birthday and all that.
This is my 3-week-old kitten that had, I had 4 of them that were 3 weeks old from Heart. I kept him.
This is my granddaughter who was at the hospital today, just had ACL
Oh.
reattached.
Oh, what?
University of Rochester volleyball team.
Oh, I was gonna say, what does she, what sport does she play?
Yeah, volleyball.
30 seconds. I know, I already had one. Jeez. I can imagine you must love it. You guys ready for me? Okay.
What a neat idea from that first gentleman that spoke up.
Yeah.
Spoke up.
Okay.
From Florida.
So let's go ahead and continue with our meeting. Okay, we are on agenda section 7, manager reports. Mr. McElhaney.
Thank you, Madam President. Agenda item 7A, it's my general manager's report. On Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, we'll be here working out of the Vets Hall along with the fire chief for the first half of the day. If anybody has any questions about district operations or anything like that, as usual. Thanks to coordination with the board, Ms. Dodson, Mrs. Fritz, who had to take a couple classes that we had to chase her around for. We were awarded the first time ever, one of 47 out of 2,000 special districts, the District of Distinction Award, silver level. And our hope is that we can reach the platinum level by the end of this year. We just need a couple board members to take a class or two, which we'll send out an email if you're.
Board members?
Yes. I'm not going to call them out. I'm just saying. We'll reach out with an email. And if you're willing to take a couple online classes or webinars, the district can actually upgrade it to the platinum level. Because from the staff level, that we've gained enough certifications at the staff level that we can upgrade this. Is that correct, Ms. Dodson? And so there's potential for a couple webinars that we may ask if the board is willing to attend.
Just want to make sure, there was a,
Yes.
there were a couple of board members who took a course about a month ago. Mm-hmm. Is that the one, you're not talking about them, are you?
I might be.
Because I thought it was in time for this.
It was. There's a couple more classes that you would need to take to get to the platinum level. Is that correct?
Yes, so you guys completed your courses, which allowed us to get the,
Silver.
yeah. So you'll have to complete some more classes, and I'll be reaching out to you about that.
Do you have a title?
Do I have what?
Do you have a title of the ones that, I mean, what are they about?
I don't have it in front of me, yeah.
Okay.
Similar, just
Yeah.
district operations and governance classes. But if that's possible, we might be able to upgrade to platinum level. You can see some of the public records requests. I can give you a little bit of an update on, obviously, we already talked about going up to the emergency preparedness meetings. The chief and I are working on pushing that a little bit further. The chief is actually setting up a meeting with the community liaisons that are in charge of their blocks. And we're going to be setting up a meeting within the next couple weeks to bring all the liaisons together and start giving them some informational items so they can start working within their own neighborhoods as we head into fire season. So we're moving that forward pretty well. Update on the water reclamation facility, coastal development permit, and information hold. So secondary information hold came back to the district with a few items that we need to tackle. One of them with the permanent permitting is road improvements from county planning. So we had already started to reach out to Mr. Monty Soto to start working on designs and plans. We'll be entering into a contract with him to start some of these design elements so we can submit that to the county. There is some biological reports that we've already started to do as it applies to protocol level surveys versus what we do for the AMP. It was less daunting than I thought it was going to be. There's about 12 items, but some of those items are going to take some of the consultants. But we did do a budget adjustment a couple months ago, so those should be covered. So we've got about 90 days to address those, and we've already started working on that. So all in all, I was pleased that most of our initial information hold responses were accepted, and now we just have a few things to clean up. But again, we'll be bringing back the project description for the WRF to the board because the county would like to see those road improvements as a part of the project scope. So there'll be a couple tweaks to that project description with Director Gray and Director Dean. We're going to get together next week in the ad hoc, make some changes to the project description, update that, and that'll come before the board right about the same time the SCIR does in June. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Yes, Director Gray?
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, on the information hold process, I'm wondering, I don't want to sit here and get too critical of the county, but is there some limit on the number of times they can come back for more information? Because this has been going on now for several years, and we've been giving them, I don't know how many times we've had this process, iterative process, but you know, from our point of view, I think the county should kind of get one chance to ask the questions and not just come back with new questions. It sounds like that's what the road improvement thing. Yeah, the road improvement thing, I would think should have been covered in the first round of requests. But I'm not criticizing us at all.
Right.
I'm just wondering if there's something that the county maybe should be pressured, should do, and maybe required to do in way of expediting its side of the process and making sure it asks all the right questions right away for the first time.
Yeah, in analyzing the second information hold, it's our belief, even though it wasn't said outright, that some of those comments are more replies from the Coastal Commission. Some of them are a little bit of county's responses, but it wasn't said explicitly. I'd have to defer to Mr. Carmel or Mr. Green. There's some things we can try to push back on. One of them is a feasibility study that they requested, which we had given, I believe we gave them that in the past, and I don't think they liked it. But there's discussion of updating that feasibility study to meet some of the unanswered questions that they have. But I'll ask Mr. Carmel. I mean, I think they can keep coming at us with more questions. I will say the positive thing is the information hold shrunk significantly from the original. So while they're still asking a lot of us, it will take a little bit of time. I feel better at the brevity of this one compared to the original. But Mr. Carmel?
I'm not aware of any legal requirement that would cap the amount of information they can seek. I mean, that's the short answer. In this particular instance, the fact that it's drawn on as long as it has, and I know there has been multiple requests for additional information, in theory, all of which could have been identified very early in this process, but for whatever reason wasn't. I know some of it has to do with massive turnover in county planning through the last 5 years, to be candid with you, or more. And some of these information items, at least I looked at what just came in we had already complied with years ago, but the left hand and right hand weren't in sync again. So in answer to your question, no, as long as the questions are relevant and seeking information that's important for them to evaluate the project, they can continue to answer the questions. You just hope they do a better job of consolidating, looking comprehensively in the beginning, and not drawing the process out as far as they have.
So, on a lighter note, we won't take very long to get these answers to them, so we don't have, so we don't run in continual turnover. But even on this, since Mr. Green and I took this over the last couple of years, we've already had a couple different county planners come in and out. And then we were assigned one that was going to review this, and then she was gone, and someone else was put back in it. So right now we have a little bit of continuity with Mr. Freund, and we're going to get this information back to him as soon as possible. We're going to be setting up some professional service agreements to get some of the work done. We're already under contract with the biologist, so I would definitely keep you and the public updated.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carmel, too.
Any board questions or comments? Oh, yes, Director.
It would be really nice as new planners came in that they check to see what the other planners already asked us, because some of these things I recognize on the information hold we have already answered a while back.
Anybody else? Any public comment? Any in-house public comment? Any online?
No.
Okay, great.
And then, with your permission, Madam President, I can jump into Mr. Geary's report. He's out today.
Okay.
So Mr. Geary is almost finished with the cables for the bluff, with the fire breaks, along with the fire breaks. Those fire breaks are hoping to begin in June 2nd. He's been mowing the trails. He's planning to mow the trails in the upcoming weeks, working on invasive plant spraying. We're just kind of working on a contractor right now. The budget is getting very thin from the F&R side. So we're working in coordination with FFRP, who has graciously offered to pay for a significant amount of that spraying. You may or may not have noticed, but the Vets Hall lights have now been converted to LED, so that it's a little bit brighter in here, and that will save us some money on PG&E.
Yeah, in the video, you can see it in the video, the brightness.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. And then I'm not sure if you noticed in the dining hall, but those LED lights were replaced and the blinds were replaced.
Nice.
That had been falling apart. So Mr. Geary was able to get some of that completed. And we have some other capital improvement project items with the Vets Hall that'll be coming up in the new fiscal year. The next thing is Mr. Geary's looking at our doors around the facility are starting to fail in terms of locking mechanisms and the exit bars. Am I saying it correctly? Panic bars. Thank you. So those need to be upgraded and replaced, and that's coming up very soon. The trippers are scheduled to be finished by next week. So those have pretty much all been done. He's been doing a good job of sanding and staining those. And he'll be flailing on the East Ranch towards the backside of the bank and Steelhead Park over the next week. And the maintenance crews went out with the fire department and participated in chainsaw work. So training on the chainsaws in terms of bucking up trees and falling trees. And so they've got a good safety class on operating chainsaws, because we have a couple gentlemen who are new to the department and maybe have limited chainsaw experience. And so the fire department, in coordination with them, was able to put on a little bit of a class and talk about best practices. And with that, concludes David's report.
Yes, Director Gray.
Thank you, President Scott. Yeah, just one quick question. He mentions mowing trails. Does that the mowing of the fire break around the Biscayne Ranch Preserve, or is it something else?
Trails within the ranch would be mowed during the last week of June.
Last week of June, which is, so it sounds like If that's the fire break or what. So,
Happy.
yeah.
And you know the Forest Loop Trail, where the weeds, they're encroaching on both sides. That's one of the, things that the volunteers have commented on, and so I suspect there are several trails that are like that are heavily encroached. The boardwalk, the volunteers, hands and knees do that, weed trimmers, but that's one thing that we've seen them do in the past.
So it really is mowing the trail. I know what you're talking about. Yes, we're really mowing the trails. And that's not the fire, that's not the 100-foot fire break. That's something different, it sounds like.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, are you done with Mr. Aguirre?
I'm all finished.
Okay, is there anything else from the board? How about in-house public comment? How about online?
Tina Dickinson.
Okay, Ms. Dickinson?
Yeah, President Scott, I raised my hand for the general manager's report at the end, but it didn't get taken. So
Okay.
actually,
Yeah, I wasn't told, but go ahead and make comment,
okay,
whatever.
thank you
Yeah,
very much.
sure.
So while Director Gray has questions about county planning, and why it's taking so long, why there may be new questions or whatever that they want. Let me just remind the board and staff that we are now on a third general manager. We are on multiple changes on the board. And so we too, just like planning department, I think we're on the 5th planner now that has had this since the initial planner of Erlen Singewald. I could name them all, but I think we're up to number 5 on this project over the beginning of 2014. And so, you can say, well, oh my goodness, planning department needs all this. But let's be realistic. Planning department is probably doing the best job it can do to avoid the Coastal Commission, an appeal. And so they're probably wanting to do the best job they can. And the only person that has been here for all of this time is legal counsel, Mr. Carmel, and it's 16 years now that he's been with us. So as far as, the people that are working on this, R&I committee, the GMs, board members, it is also a problem that we've experienced with so many changes throughout this very, very long process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. Any other online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to agenda item 7C then. Ms. Fritz.
Thank you, President Scott. This is the Finance Manager's report for the month of May. The expenditure report was in this packet as agenda item 5A, which is a detailed listing of all of our monthly expenditures. And you'll see, the compensation report and our available cash balances. And there's nothing out of the ordinary, and we are, deep in our next budget cycle. So Finance Department is working with the managers and pulling that report together. And working with the general manager. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Board members? Okay. How about in-house? Is there any public comment in-house on this? Right? How about online?
No.
Okay. Let's go to utilities. Mr. Green. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's nothing to be sorry about.
Yeah.
I just wanted to briefly ask, on page 146, which is referencing the energy conservation measures at the wastewater plant. And so I'm looking at, current total budget and then fiscal activity versus, you know, the total amount of the project. It doesn't appear, I guess I think I'm directing this to Utilities Manager Green. So I'm looking that there's only like 3 different items with regard to the ECMs, the first one and then the 4th one and the 6th one, that have some fiscal activity taking place, and it's a relatively minor amount considering how much ultimately needs to be spent. So what does that necessarily indicate?
So when these budget numbers are published, these are from the months before. So I think some of that you're seeing in there, Director Farmer, are purchases. I'm seeing like the blower unit and some of the fiscal activity for the period. You've got that generator replacement, so it looks like that line item that we received that generator. So the PG&E would have invoiced us for at that time as well. So just by taking a quick look at it, that's what I surmise is some of those fiscal activities is physical materials coming in for the ECMs.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Can we anticipate more activity taking place in the near future as the ECMs get addressed and get closer to completion, so to speak?
Well, we've about satisfied our budget for this, so we've paid a great deal of this forward while we were waiting for PG&E to establish a GC for this project. So now that we have that, I don't think you'll see a whole bunch more line items or fiscal activity. They'll actually be performing and installing that material that they purchased and procured over the last year and a half.
Okay, all right, well, thanks for that explanation.
Sure.
Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. And I just wanted to reflect. It's been a while. PG&E let go Southland, right? And no, it was.
Southland's the engineering firm.
Right,
yeah,
right.
they let go of FRM.
Right, FRM, and they finally got Cushman lined up recently as civil and mechanical. So I think there was a bit of a lull, and now it's all hands on deck, right?
Yes, Director Dean.
And we also tentatively have a joint finance and R&I tour of the wastewater treatment plant to look at what progress is being made on the SST, I believe tentatively for June 25th.
Yeah.
June something.
That's what I have on my calendar, the 25th of June.
June 25th, where the public is invited, because it's an agendized meeting, as well as the rest of the board, I believe.
Yes. Okay. Anybody online?
No.
Okay. Anything else from the board? All right, let's go to Mr. Green. Continue to go ahead and talk to us about your department.
Great, thank you, Madam President. We kind of touched on the SST operations. I'll touch on some more of the wastewater activities going on. I'd like to celebrate or give a huge thanks and great job to Aaron Moe, who passed his grade 2 wastewater exam. Been with us a little over the year, took his first shot at an exam and passed it the first time, so congratulations to him. Additionally, with those SST projects that we're working on, we do have Cushman on site. They have been working collaboratively with Paso Tank, and they're doing some of that rehab work on some of our tank works, our equalization bin, the south and north digester. So those projects are ongoing here with the SST. Our SCADA portion was developed and installed. We're not completely running on the system yet, and some training on how to operate and how to manipulate the SCADA remote operations on computers and stuff was performed last week with the wastewater operators as well. Continued lift station maintenance around the community for our wastewater distribution system is ongoing. We also jetted and cambered nearly a mile worth of pipe during the month. So great job on wastewater getting out there proactively and taking care of that. On the water side of things, we are still continuing on with our monthly hydrant maintenance. I think we touched over 40 hydrants, so 34 wet barrels, 7 dry barrels. Also, while we were doing this, we're exercising the hydrants, we're exercising the isolation valves, making sure they do isolate in the case where we have a vehicle versus hydrant event. Also, we're weed whacking around the area, so that way if the fire department were to come on board, they can see it and know where it's at, and then make sure it's fully operable. And then in some cases, we're doing some exterior coating on it as well. We know that our environment around here is very tough on metal and exterior coating, so those that are needing updated are getting painted as well while we're out there. I will remind everyone the hydrant maintenance link that is on our website. If you have any concerns about any of our pertinences or hydrants that are out there, please feel free to populate that link and let us know location and what you think your issue is or concern is for that, rather.
Have you had anybody utilize that?
We have. I think we've had, Ms. Dotson, about half a dozen.
Oh, okay,
It's
good.
been sparsely populated, but it's been nice. The issues that have come up on that link or were actually, very important or beneficial links where they were, surrounded by weeds, or maybe something was dripping here on a corner of town that we don't get to drive by every day. So they've been beneficial and helpful for that. So I continue to advocate for the use of that link. Also, it is Drinking Water Week from the 4th through the 10th. So I just want to give a praise and shout out to all the water guys out there and who are working hard to make our drinking water safe and reliable. Let's see here. AMI, as of yesterday, we are at 2,250 AMI installed. Yeah, we have a little bit more than 1,200 left. We are anticipating completion of that project by Memorial Day. Stewart Street tanks, yay, we've got our CDP for the tank installation completely approved. So great job to MKN and utility staff who has worked very hard. We were just talking with our engineers, MKN, on this, and how difficulty the permitting was for this tanks, for an existing tank. So we had to jump through some hoops, and there's federal funding involved in it. So there was a lot of other guidelines that we had to follow and prerequisites to receive this funding. Finally, our San Simeon transmission line on 424, we successfully submitted an encroachment permit to Caltrans. They're under their 90-day review cycle. I use the 90-day term loosely. We're basically just waiting on Caltrans for right-of-way entry so we can core and bore and see what's underground. And with that, that's pretty much all I have for the report, and I am available for questions.
Board members? Yes, Director Dean?
Can you tell me what the situation is with the restroom at the East Ranch? Has PG&E put the pole in yet?
So PG&E is not installing any pole. We are installing a pole. The pole was installed yesterday.
Okay.
And it was placed in concrete, which will need a week to cure. Once that concrete is cured, we are going to attach our electrical from the building, which is a Rodeo Grounds booster station, to that pole, go 25 feet across the road onto that other pallet pole that's been there for numerous years. From there, we'll go to a backboard and then underground to the restroom, and that will take place next week.
So when will we have a ribbon cutting?
Probably about 2 weeks. We'll need to get the county out for a final inspection too. We have to have all these things buttoned up, completed, and ready for inspection.
Cool, thank you.
So please give us a couple weeks on that, and I'm sorry for the delay.
Yes, Director Farmer?
Yes, thank you, President Scott. I don't mean to be humorous, but on page 151, where it's talking about by the way, and thanks to your staff for all the hard work they're doing out there. So it says here 34 hydrants were exercised. So are they like doing push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that?
Right, well, we're exercising the internal working, so yeah, the valving and the caps and that sort of thing. No push-ups or jumping jacks were performed at this point yet. So.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Thank you, President Scott. And I had a question on the same page. A while back, I looked up wet barrel and dry barrel fire hydrants as you reported last year, and gets me wondering why we have, dry barrel hydrants. Did it just end up that way? Were they cheaper? I mean, I gather that's great back east where you're going to have snow and ice. That's the deal, right?
Or even in Paso Robles, where you can experience those below 30 degrees over 4 or 6 hours that will freeze those devices. So they did a climate, basically research on this, and they put those dry barrels in specific places where it could potentially get to a freezing temperature there. So those are specifically engineered and designed locations for installation. Wet barrels are more money for install and for the device themselves, so it wasn't a cost-cutting measure at installation. They were specifically located there.
Oh, so the wet barrels cost more?
They do, for installation and the device.
Yeah, and these hydrant guards, that's awesome. And obviously, that's just for the wet barrels.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good, yeah. Well, as the majority of our hydrants are wet barrel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is fantastic. We're going to give this a shot. We saw this at a convention last summer, and it received a lot of positive peer review by those who have installed it. And actually, I mean, you put these sort of things in hoping you never have to use them. I mean, it's kind of like insurance. It's the most expensive thing you pay for that you hope you never use. This is kind of just a cheaper insurance policy on some of those more higher populated, higher trafficked areas. Very good, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the board? How about public comment from in-house? Okay, how about from online?
Yes, Tina Dickinson.
Okay. Ms.
Thank you.
Dickinson?
Yes, thank you, President Scott. I missed an item that I understand was heard earlier, and that was on the distribution and the effluent lines at Washburn, that a third line was going to be installed to San Simeon. So I'm really having a hard time understanding that, because I don't know if anybody's been keeping up with San Simeon CSD, the dissolution process with the county, but the county has asked San Simeon to hire a consultant to do, I mean, a really huge study at for a very large amount of money. San Simeon currently does not have that money. So I don't know whether the county is going to pay for part of it. I don't know. But I'm wondering if our district is keeping up with what is happening. They're still holding board meetings once a month. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that if you haven't looked into, you should be looking into. And my other question, because this has arisen and I've asked for this information over a long period of time from when Mr. D'Enzo was here. And that is, I was on a birding outing one day north on Moonstone when I saw construction equipment, Caltrans, et cetera, regarding a sewer connection for the then Dow property. It looked as if that's exactly what was taking place. So I would like some confirmation as to whether that sewer at that the old hamlet, the Dow, the Robertsons, whatever, was connected to our sewer. And I should, if I don't get it, I'll put in a public records request, but it seems that would be an answer that Mr. Green could provide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no public records request necessary. They are not hooked up to our system. They have paid impact fees back on, I want to say 2020, somewhere in November. I just looked up this information, but they received right of entry from Caltrans. They had a construction company install that line across Caltrans, blind flange, so capped both sides, but it is not hooked up to our distribution system for wastewater right now, no.
And the property is for sale?
Yes.
Yes, Director Dean.
It also says in the real estate listing for it that they're working on their septic system, so I assumed that they were not connected to us.
Right.
And we are paying attention. to San Simeon, and the county has flown an RFP for an analysis of the entire district's finances and everything like that. And so we saw that RFP go out, and we spoke with the county at our meeting, and we will be included in that study as a potential option for San Simeon. And so we're working closely with the county and staying on top of it.
Yes, Director Dean.
And this is part of the reason I included what it takes for regional two different districts to connect together in my RAC report.
Anybody online?
No.
Okay. So then let's go to the board member committee and liaison reports. And is there anything that anybody would like to discuss or ask questions about in those reports? Yes, Director Dean.
I have a question for the board.
Okay.
Okay, so as you know, I'm also a liaison for the Coastal Commission. And there's some discussion going on at the Coastal Commission that I would like to know if you would like me to report on, because normally I just wait, and if it's something to do with Cambria, then I report on it. But right now, they're looking at 6 projects, building projects that are going in Los Osos, because as you know, Los Osos is starting to allow some growth. They currently have 4 housing projects under appeal and 2 more that they're looking at. Do you want me to report on those? Is the board interested in hearing what's going on with how the Coastal Commission is handling growth?
I'd say yes, because it's relevant
Okay.
regionally in terms of issues too. Now, Los Osos lifted their they lifted their moratorium some time ago, and wasn't the moratorium based on on the sewer system rather than water supply, or
I think it was on both.
on both?
Yeah, but I'll go ahead and do a report.
That's relevant to us, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do a report. Normally, I wouldn't if it didn't relate to us, but I think this kind of does.
Yeah.
I concur with yes, we might learn something.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Director Farmer.
I would totally concur with needing that information. If I could just back up just a moment, and I'm sorry, my brain wasn't moving as fast as you were. I just want to go back to page 168. Actually, it's also page 167 and 169, but especially 168 with regard to the San Simeon Creek well levels. So I just want to point out, and it's probably most noticeable on the first 2 that I mentioned, that the well level now is, it's below average, and the well level is at the point where it's going to be lower than any of the previous 10 years. At least that appears to be the possibility. So I just want to point that out. We're blessed to have tap water here in this community. Not everybody has quality tap water, but we do. However, because of the rather low level of the creeks, sometimes the well levels drop down rather quickly, and it appears that that's possibly happening now. So I just want to call that to the attention of the residents and visitors, especially visitors of our community, to be as, how could we say it, as conscientious and conservative as possible with regard to water usage in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think Mr. Green, if he'd like to make a comment, that'd be appreciated.
Very good. Thank you, Director Farmer. First of all, I will always advocate for conservation here. We all know that we're sub 70 or about 70% of our annual rainfall this year. So it's looking very similar to that 2013 era where we entered into that 3.5 years of drought. So we are very conscientious about well levels right now. We were about a foot lower than our high for when we end season at the San Simeons. So that is concerning to us. We will be running the Santa Rosas. We are running them today. We will have them offline for about a week while we perform our in-stream flow study at Santa Rosa, but we will continue pumping from Santa Rosa during the dry season, as we do, and trying to kind of hold back on our San Simeon diversion for these reasons. But again, I do advocate for conservation at all times for the community. both residential and commercial, so thank you.
Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Well, thank you, President Scott. And I just wanted to comment on the Finance Committee report. In preparation for this meeting, since we had the third quarter budget report, I watched the April 14 Finance Committee meeting, and if anyone wants to either refresher or really learn how the budget, how the budget is structured, the explanation there was so very thorough. Lots of questions. So again, kudos to Finance Manager and also to the committee chair for letting those questions flow. It was, I just, I took notes. It was very useful. So great, best explanation I think I've heard. So it was great.
Why, thank you, Vice President Thomas. Oh, shucks. Anybody else, any board members? No? Okay, how about any public comment?
No.
Not online or in-house? Okay. So let's go to future agenda items. You wanted to let us know what's on the docket?
Can I let the general manager read it, just to save my voice? Yeah.
Sure.
Put my spectacles on.
And you can just say the topics. You don't need to do the whole agenda item.
Okay. Consideration approval of extending an agreement with consultant services for our accounting firm. The annual water shortage assessment. Third amendment to the franchise agreement for solid waste management. Amending the project description for the water reclamation facility. An addendum to the SEIR. CIP adjustment for our sewer rates and water rates. A staff presentation on the Stewart Street tank construction and implementation plan, along with consultant services for a construction management portion, project management portion. EV tractor budget adjustment. Independent auditors report. Discussion and consideration of a agreement between SlowCog and the CCSD for 4 DC fast chargers, very similar to the grant that we brought before the board but fell through due to state funding. They've now come back to us, and there's some additional funding, so we might be able to move that project forward in terms of fast chargers. A public hearing to discuss public sector job vacancy rates according to a new bill, Assembly Bill 2561. The preliminary budget will be coming before the board. Itemized report to collect delinquent solid waste collection and disposal charges on the county tax rolls. The Fire Hazard Fuel Reduction Program itemized cost report. Fire Suppression Benefit Assessment Consumer Price Index Adjustment. And confirming the itemized report of water and wastewater standby or availability charges. And that's it.
Need a second pot of coffee.
Anything? Yes, Director Farmer.
Thank you. This is something I meant to mention much earlier, and I overlooked it. Ms. Sesser, who's still in the audience, she was talking earlier about the fundraising for the skate park. So I thought I'd mention a couple of things. First off, we were just informed, or I was just informed, that there's a new thermometer over at the skate park that indicates the accurate point to which the fundraising has taken place. Obviously, a little more is needed, but that new thermometer should raise everybody's temperature with regard to, hey, let's get going. But also want to point out, with regard to the fundraising, I know that most folks that live here in town over the years, the last 5 years or so, saw folks over there by the old skate park location, and we'd be out there and waving signs and that type of thing, and people would stop and donate money, and that's not happening anymore. But what is happening now is that there's a booth as you enter the farmer's market on Friday afternoon, and there's various treats there, and you can make a donation. So I happened to be there last Friday, and I think Margie kind of alluded to this. So most people are putting in $1, $2. You see an occasional 5 or a 10 or a 20, but I happened to look inside of where the little container is, and there was a $100 bill in there. I think Margie alluded to that. So that was just so heartwarming. It just like nourished your soul to see a $100 bill for somebody just casually walking by. So I just want to mention that if folks are interested in donating money, you can always go, of course, to their website. But if you're shopping at the farmer's market, which a lot of us do, come prepared to put a little money in the bucket there for the fundraising for the kids and for the overall well-being of our community. Thank you.
Anything else? No? Are we ready to adjourn? Okay. Adjourned.